Welcome back, you guys. Responsibly Unhinged. I am back from another hiatus I said I was not going to take. I get way too cocky every single time, and I always tell people, like, I had people give me shit. This guy that told me he listens to my podcast, and he was like, every time you listen, you've started the last 6 episodes, like, we're back for good.
We're
and
back.
then you disappear for like weeks again, and I had 3 in a row, and I was like, I'm back. I have all these guests, and then I just fell off again. But once again, it's a combination of I've been traveling and just doing a lot of shit, and producer Caleb has also been traveling, so we're never here. But I'm back, and I did deliver. I have another guest for you guys today, but it has been a little while since I've caught up. I'm not going to talk about my shit that much because I don't really have that much to say, but I know some of you guys I was talking to about like trying to get on Kill Tony and stuff like that. And I did finally get on. That episode should be out on the 19th, I think. So you can look out for that.
And she killed it.
It was really fun. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was really exciting. I got to do a show with David Tell and Tom Segura. So you guys can see all of that. If you don't follow me on socials, it's already been on there, but that should be out on the 19th. So I think that'll be after this episode airs, but I want to talk more about my guest today. I have Allison Wojtowecz with me today, fellow comedian and all-around badass. We got connected online through a mutual friend, and I had seen her around the scene, loved seeing her shows, but found out we just have like a very similar trajectory.
Insanely similar.
Yeah, of shit that we've done and been into. And so I've gotten to know her a little bit more over the last few weeks and wanted to bring her on and just share her with you guys. So Alli, give yourself kind of an intro. What do you do? Everything else. Tell them all about you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Allison. I grew up in Round Rock, so I'm as close to being an Austinite as you can get, except for real Austinites. Don't come after me. Been here all my life. And yeah, professionally, I do stand-up comedy. I went to school for acting, so I still do that. Also went to school for kinesiology, so still doing some fitness stuff, but the day job is mostly in marketing these days, still in like the health and comedy fields for companies that I like and things like that. And yeah, I produce Litty Titty Tuesdays at Creek in the Cave.
Hell yeah.
I do shows all over town, and I don't know, I might have another show coming soon, but we'll see.
Sweet. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm working on trying to do a show. It's like start a show.
Yeah.
Fun,
It makes you better for sure. Like hosting forces you to write new material and crowd work and all that stuff. Yeah.
And if you guys have not, if you're local in Austin or come to Austin and haven't checked out Litty Titty Tuesday, it's super fun. I was on it the other week. It's a gong show.
Yes.
So basically the audience gets to decide if you get to stay on stage or not.
Yeah, pretty much every comic gets 5 minutes. You get a 90-second grace period at the top. And then after that, if the audience members holding glow sticks decide to turn their glow sticks on during your set, all 3 of them turn on, we hit the gong, your set is over.
Yep.
We'll talk to you about it.
It's super fun.
Mostly just roast you about it. But.
Yeah. It's really fun. I love your like watching the people who like just really lean into it though.
Yeah, it's fun. I always tell people like there is kind of a method to the madness now. I've seen enough rounds of the show now where it's like if you start seeing people turn their glow sticks on, it's almost never a good plan to just try and barrel through and like keep doing your material, because one, the light is so bright, the other people notice you turn on the first one. Yeah. So they're a little bit distracted. You got to get their attention back. And then 2, it's like you can't, it's like the dead body theory in theater. It's like you drop a prop and leave it there. It's called a dead body because the audience is just going to look at that. So it's like you're not calling attention to the fact that you just dropped this prop. You're not calling attention to the fact that someone just tried to gong you. Yeah. So it's like I always tell people you should just yell at the audience or like do something funny to call attention to the fact that they're trying to end your set, and usually that is the way to go to win them back over.
Like a little bit of herd mentality to that too is people who might have been thinking about it or want to do it. They see one person do it, so if they've even been on the fence, it gives them the courage to do it. Because like unless they're like drunk people are just assholes. I think a lot of people people want to see you win.
Generally. Yeah, definitely. But even in comedy audiences are meaner, but even in comedy, they want to see you win most of the time.
Yeah, I was very happy to get through my full 5. So without a light, I was very happy about it.
And it totally depends on the audience.
It does.
Too. Like, I feel like that audience was pretty solid at judging. Like. But sometimes you're right, they're so aggressive. There was one show where I had to grab a couple extra comics that were hanging out in the back to like have them go up to.
Because it was so quick.
Yeah, the audience just was gonging everyone, and I was like, oh man, we can't run the show short. You know,
I think
we started late.
Like, I think the week that you booked me is when that happened. Like, not we were talking about it.
Oh, when I booked,
yeah, you're like they're pretty understandable. But you're like this last week, I think they only didn't gong like 2 people. Yeah, they only gong. Like,
we had 13 people go up that week, and only 3 didn't get gonged. I think
that's savage. stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for like a Tuesday night crowd. Like if it's like a weekend drunk people, it'd probably be
Seriously.
way worse. Like,
I mean, I called it Litty Titty Tuesday because I want to still get them drunk on a
Yeah,
Tuesday,
yeah.
but yeah.
super fun.
For
Well,
sure.
how long have you been doing stand up then?
5 years now. I just
Wow.
hit 5 years in May. So
Cool.
yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, May 20th or 30th or something.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love asking all comics, but just like what kind of spurred that for you, or what got you into it or interested in doing it?
So I mentioned I got a degree in acting.
Uh-huh.
I grew up acting, graduated thinking I was going to just be auditioning for plays, commercials, whatever, in Austin for a bit and then maybe move. And when I graduated college, I got cast in this company called Shit-Faced Shakespeare.
Amazing. I've heard about this.
It's so fun. I mean, there's some spin-offs, like there's one called Drunk Shakespeare in New York City.
Yeah.
So our version was the original Flex. And it was like very methodical, but we did start drinking like, okay, so basically it's you do a Shakespeare play, we would do the entire story, but cut the script to 1 hour because it's hard to keep someone drunk for 3 hours and the audience isn't gonna want that, honestly.
Right.
So we would do the whole story, but cut it to 1 hour and then do like all of the characters with 6 actors.
Okay.
And one of the actors would be drunk for the
Only
show.
one. Okay.
Only one. And then the fun comes in where the rest of us have to figure out how to deal with the drunk. And we don't tell the audience who the drunk is. They obviously figure it out because they start drinking 4 hours before the show.
Wow.
So they're truly drunk. And we would like track what they drank. We knew what each person needed to drink to get to a certain level. Like it was a science. It was crazy.
That's wild.
But super fun. And I loved doing it, but I felt like I was so bad at improv, and like I love Shakespeare. I'm pretty good actually at improvising in that type of language, but I was just really scared to take chances, and like I kept getting notes when I was the drunk actor that I needed to act more drunk. But I would be plastered. Like I don't drink, and I would drink like 6 drinks before the show. For me, that's plaster. You know what I mean? Like 6 whiskeys, right? Like a lot, you know? And so I would be genuinely drunk, but I was so like in my head about like, no, I need to do my lines and like I can't fuck up the show. But the fun of the show was when the drunk would fuck it up. Yeah. And then the sober actors would fix it or try to. So anyway, I was like, I need to learn how to improv better. I did not want to take improv classes. Yeah. I was like, this seems like middle school theater. Right. No offense, but
yeah. I did a stand-up class and it was interesting.
I also didn't want to take a stand-up class. I had a friend from college that was doing stand-up, and he actually was like, I think you'd like this. Yeah. Sam Castillo, shout out.
So you guys know each other from way back then?
From college, yeah. I was a sweetheart for his fraternity. So anyway, I started just creeping at open mics, and I was like, oh, well, I do like stand-up, and so I was like, well, I think this will make me funnier and like more willing to talk to the audience, because everything about acting is like stay in the world of the play, don't break the character. Yeah. And stand-up is the opposite. You need to completely be yourself, or at least seem like you're being yourself to the audience and talk to the audience and make eye contact with them, and it's so scary. So I started creeping and figuring out how open mics work, and just started trying it, and was obviously bad, but like it was super fun. And I just kind of like used it as a way to get better at Shit-Faced Shakespeare. But because I had the acting experience, I was already pretty good on stage. Yeah. So like I think my stand-up, I didn't have to learn how to be on stage. I had to learn how to write a joke, you know, and I had to learn how to like be in the moment more. So it's just, I wanted to work those skills, and stand-up checked all the boxes, and now it's just like stand-up's the thing. Yeah. You know? Like, hell yeah. I'll still act sometimes, but do you do any like sketch and stuff like that? Like acting? Yeah. I mean, mostly with friends and stuff, or like just by myself. Like
we just shot a sketch this weekend, like a silly one, like 6 comics.
Just
for like reels. And
so exactly. I think reels are super fun to make, and like I mean, for Litty Titty Tuesday, I try to make a sketch with my co-host for the week to like promote who's coming on. Yeah. So like Jordan McDonald is this week, and we shot a sketch where he is a men's dating coach. And he decides to go live during our first date to show his followers how to do a first date. That's good. That's great. But so it's just, shit like that.
No, I definitely think it shows on stage when people have had like past experiences being in front of people. It's like, I think that's like one of the being early into it myself. I think that's like the comment I usually get, is that I just seem very comfortable on stage for me. But I was like, I didn't do like acting or anything, but I used to teach, even like, which isn't a stage. I used to teach fucking college kids.
Just being in front of people. College kids are terrifying.
Yes. So, and that's, I used to ask a room of like 30 to 90 people a question that I need a direct answer to, and they just stare at me. Like me telling a joke and you not laughing. Like I'm so used to just being stared at. Yeah. Like it doesn't like shake me the way it does some people. I'm just kind of like, Okay, moving on.
Pretty much.
And then I also like doing bodybuilding. That's like, I used to be on stage half naked, like having my body judged, like, and I'm a woman, like that was way more hurtful than like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just like, all right, I can go rewrite the joke. It's another 6 months to rework my body. Like,
seriously.
so I think it helped a lot.
It's similar. Yeah. I mean, it's similar with that for acting too. It's like, you don't necessarily feel a bomb when you're acting, but like, it's more so in the audition process. You hear no so much that like rejection doesn't even fucking matter anymore. You're just like, and oftentimes you're hearing no from people, especially when you're in college, that you have to still go to class with every day, or like your professors and they're telling you you're not good enough, you know? So it's like, okay, I think I can be not good enough for you people I don't know for 30 seconds. Yeah,
it's like, you're gonna forget about this. It's fine. No, but you're great though. That's cool to know you've been doing it that long, because you can definitely tell. Like I said, it's been fun to watch your sets.
It's fun, yeah. I feel like I'm finally getting into a place where I actually feel like again, I've been comfortable on stage for a while, but like understanding what comfort in stand-up is on stage is like different. And I talked to Liz Splat about this a lot, because I just think she's so good at like getting the crowd riled up and crowd working and stuff. And like, I'm always so scared to poke the bear with the audience. It's like, I'm not going to ignore you. I will tell my jokes to you guys. I might have some spots where I know I'm going to ask you a question. If you heckle me, I'm going to deal with it. But like, I'm not one of those comics that's like, so what do you do? Like trying to just on the fly do stuff. But I feel like I'm getting better at that. And I've been kind of trying to push myself to do that more. And that just feels like actual stand up to me, when you really are present enough to like, no, I know my material, but I don't need to get there right now. I can talk to you for a second, or like make something up. And
because early on it is kind of like, I think too, it's scary to like mess with that, because you're like, okay, I know I only have these like this amount of minutes, and I want to show you like, my good stuff. And so it's like when you're doing that and then you work with someone, you have no idea how long that interaction is going to go, and then you're like, then they might, you might not even get to your material, or know where, like, you time it out in the beginning so much. Like, so I do think there's probably that like fluidity that comes with experience.
You definitely like, you don't I feel like I never learned timing on stage from acting, and you have to know it so well for stand up. Like with acting, it's like you just go into the world. Like, it sounds weird, but it's like a hypnosis. I'm doing the play, and then you come out and you're like, wow, that was 2.5 hours or whatever. That's crazy. But like with stand up, you go on stage, and like, this happened on the 420 show this week. I was hosting, and I wanted to open with all new material. So I did 3 new jokes, and I got the light, but the time, like, I had 7 minutes, and they were gonna light me at 5. And I like did my hosting shit, and then I did these 3 new bits, and I thought that was like 7 minutes when I had thought it through. But then I get the light at the end of the 3rd joke, and so I was like, oh, maybe the light guy just messed up. And I get off stage and I look at my timer, and sure as shit, I had done 5.5 minutes. And I was like, you think sometimes, like maybe it was because it was the 420 show. The timing on stage it's so skewed. Like, that's definitely a really good skill.
It is. Like, that's something that I definitely feel like as I do it more even now, that's like improved, that I didn't have before, because I used to just kind of try to like barrel through material. And I think that's common when you're new.
Oh yeah.
But
like,
now
pausing for the joke.
Is so hard. Giving people time to like laugh.
Well, because also when you start, they're not laughing. So you're like, I have to just keep going. You know, like,
and it's like learning that sometimes if you stop and wait, then they laugh, because they're like, they're catching up. They're catching up to the joke.
You'll notice that with like, this is gonna be funny, but like, you'll notice that with certain types of audiences too. Like the reason they say like white audiences are different to perform in front of than black audiences, it's like black audiences are pretty fast. Like they usually like catch the joke really fast, whereas white people will sit there for a second and be like, oh, like it's a thing. So it's like, knowing the time, like, and just getting the vibe, like watching the other comics before you, how fast are people reacting and stuff like that. It's cool. It's a fun like learning experience. I like it because it's kind of challenging to kind of keep figuring it out. So, it's cool. It's a puzzle, you know. Sure. Why did you start? Just you wanted to, or? So I have a few things. Like, I actually realized it goes back further than I thought. I've talked about this briefly on the podcast, but not this part. When all this stuff happened with like Kiltony and Natal last week, my college roommate texted me, and she was like, we lived together for like 5 years, and she was like, this is so cool to see. And she's like, we used to joke about this. So like, my first like intro to like being into comedy, I used to watch Chelsea Lately every night. Like, we used to DVR it, aging us, like every night, and watch it. And so all the writers of Chelsea do stand up. And so I used to follow all their small stuff. Like, they would come to like the Funny Bone or Zanies and places like that. And I would know them from the show. So I would like go see their stuff. And that was like me just kind of getting into it. But she was like, I remember us watching Chelsea and always just talking about how like
you have so much material from your life, like that your life's just so ridiculous that you'd be great at this. And she's like, I've literally been quoting you for a decade, like shit that you say. Like she used to keep like running notes in her phone. It's like shit Kylie says, shit Kylie doesn't like.
Yeah.
Like
I have a friend that does that to me too.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And it was like, and she was like this, and I was like, wow, I didn't even realize it went back that far.
Yeah.
But like spurring it's like I was never like not a stand-up fan, but I wasn't like crazy into it.
Same. I always liked it when I saw it, but I wasn't like trying to find it necessarily.
And my long-term relationship was with a guy who was very into stand-up. And so we used to watch together. He was a huge like Tom Segura fan. So I had gotten him, this was actually my like full circle flex I got to have, but I was like, I like got us tickets to go see him for Valentine's Day. It was like my first like theater person I'd seen, right? Like all the rest of them were kind of like little like zany shows, like Chris Franjola, like people like that. And we went to that show and I was like, this is so cool. And we used to take road trips and he would listen to stand-up Pandora. So it would be just like bits on shuffle. Yeah. And I got really into it. And I love storytelling comedy. I found Eliza in college. She's my favorite comic.
Dude, I had a story with her. I'll tell you in a minute.
She's my favorite. And then I really got into like Mike Birbiglia. Like I liked like the story of that kind of stuff that he would do. And I started like, we would just listen and we got into it. And then after the pandemic, or I think right before the pandemic, there's like a local club in Nashville. It's like this, it's kind of like probably like the Creek of Nashville kind of thing. It's called Third Coast. And they did like a lot of little shows and stuff like that frequently. So we started just going and these like $10 shows. And it would be like our date night and stuff. And we would go do that. And he started talking about that. He's like, I heard they do classes here. He's like, I think that I could maybe do stand up. And he was like, writing stuff at home all the time and everything, and he would like run stuff by me, and he just like was like, I think I could do this, but he was like, he never took any action on it. And then
there's a lot of people.
And I kind of talked to him about it though, because I was like, that's funny. I was like, I've actually kind of always been interested in it, and he used to always complain that we like didn't have enough common interests and stuff. We didn't have anything in common, like which we didn't have a lot of common interests to be fair for how long we did it. But like I was like, maybe that could be something we could do together. Like we could take that class, and he was like, yeah, I kind of want that to be like my thing. And he was like, you could do like the improv class. And I was like, okay. But the whole relationship was, I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, but then I took he never signed up, and she's back.
Hi, honey.
Don't spy the computer. We have a guest for those listening. Sorry. It's the cat again.
Hello, kitty cat.
So I signed up for the improv class, and he didn't sign up for the stand-up class. But then the pandemic happened, and they had to refund everyone. And then we basically broke up by the time that they were like reinstating it. And I was kind of like, I was deep in my bodybuilding stuff then. I didn't really have the space for it at that time. But I like we broke up, and like 6 months later, I was like brainstorming this podcast and stuff. And I was like, wow, I really would love to maybe do that class to try to like be better at like shortening my storytelling. Cause I wanted to try to populate my podcast on TikTok. So I wanted to do like funny storytelling, but I was struggling to like do like 3 minutes. And so I was like, okay, stand-up sets, mics are like 3 to 5 minutes. So I was like, maybe that could help me just with that skill. So I'll take the class for that.
Right.
And then I started taking it, and I loved it. And like, just like we would do like workshopping of stuff, and I would go up, like they would give us like a topic, and we would write for like 10 minutes on it. And then he would make us immediately come up and perform whatever we wrote.
That's fun.
And I would go up, and like the guy that was teaching it in the class was all like, they would think I was lying that I like wrote something and brought it. And I was like, they're like, how did it match this topic? Cause I would come up there and I would have like a fully like loop around bit, like stuff that refers back to the beginning of it and stuff. Right. And they're like, and he was just like, you have a really like a knack for this.
Yeah.
And he was, obviously you have to learn a lot about like joke structuring and stuff, but he's like, the fact that you can come up with this much stuff very quickly and like on stage, like on the stage you were comfortable. And so I really liked it. And I was like, okay, I knew I was moving to Austin, and that it was like, he was like, oh, the comedy's about to be booming there. Like, the rumor about it at that time with the mothership and stuff. He's like, this will be great for you. So my intention was to get here and start. But then I was in this just like long distance situationship crap that was like ruining my mental health basically. And so I was like, okay, I just didn't get started. I just started the podcast, and I was proud of myself for that. Yeah. And then I got through the winter, and I just decided to I signed up for the Buzzmill mic a couple times in the fall and never got on it. And then I was just like, I didn't try for anywhere else. I didn't even know how to find mics really. She's going to be a pain. Yeah. And so I didn't really know how to find them. So I didn't really put a lot of effort in. She is really nice right
I tried to bonk her.
But yeah, I didn't really put much effort into it. And then in February, I just randomly was like, you know what? I'm just going to put my name on the sign up again. There was one more date left, and I threw it on, and I got on. And so I was like, okay. And I did it, and it like was a really fun thing.
So your first mic was the Buzzmo mic?
Yeah.
Dude, that's such a good mic.
I know. It like really, I said I got spoiled because then I went to the next ones and I was like, oh, I always like this.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I started at kick butt.
Okay, yeah. My next one, even my second one was really cool too, because my second one I ever did was Roscoe's opening week mic.
Oh, wow.
And so that one was really cool. But I got down, I was like still not sure. I kind of thought I was just gonna do it as like this little side hobby thing. And I was kind of being a little just like vengeful at my ex too, being like, said I couldn't do this. Like,
right.
And so I like went up and did the second one though, and I had like 4 people come up to me and they were like, how long have you been doing this? I loved your set and stuff. And I was like, this is my second mic. And they thought I was like full of shit.
Yeah, lying.
And I was like, well, I don't know. So they were like, no, that's crazy. And I think a lot of that had to do with just my comfort on stage, honestly.
Definitely.
And so I was like, okay. And literally from that day, I started going. I go like
go
6 nights
hard.
a week.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I am.
Yeah, like that's all my friends made fun of me though, because they were like, I've had so many career paths because they were like, literally, if you decide you like something, you can't just do it.
You go off,
like,
yeah.
I don't have like a medium, just do this for fun thing. Like
yeah.
That's how it was. It's like I liked fitness. I did powerlifting. I liked, then I wanted to be more into fitness. I did bodybuilding. I started a job with it. Like, it's just like, I can't just like enjoy something.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's like I was saying
become
earlier.
my identity.
Yeah, like I can't be a casual Taylor Swift fan. I have to see every tour 3 times. Like, it's just, it's who I am. You are obnoxious right now.
What's her name?
Tonks.
Tonks.
She is being ridiculous.
I know.
She
watched some camera.
This is a real impromptu podcast.
It's just so funny too. Every time we toss her, she's like, she just hits the
ground
she is.
So we talk about this. She's
so
the most
She's
unreal.
not like
no, she's
not.
She's like that even if you don't toss her. Like when she jumps off stuff, he always talks about that. He's like, she's so small. I don't understand how she makes so much noise.
She's larger than me.
She's dead weight.
Yeah. It's fun. I get it. But yeah, so that's my not short story about how I got into comedy.
It's never a short story though. Like comedy is so weird, like, and it's so individual, but that's what makes it fun and super fucking hard.
Yeah.
It's like you can take inspiration, but at the end of the day, you got to figure out your voice.
Yes.
And what path is best for you.
Yeah. I always tell people I have no shortage of material because I just generally can't shut the fuck up. That's why I have this podcast. So it's like, I will never run out of things to say. I haven't even like brushed the horizon of the amount of things that I could talk about that have happened to me. And so that's what's funny too. I had someone ask me after a set before, they were like, where do you get all these ideas? I was like, all this happened to me.
Yeah.
And they were like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's real. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes, obviously, I've had to explain this to people too. It's like, obviously, for the sake of like jokes and punchlines, you like exaggerate or fabricate things. But all my premises are like based on a true story.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Even like for me, like even some of the most ridiculous one-liners are like based on truth, but not maybe the way you think. Like, for example, I have one that's like, this guy called me a sadist, and I was like, dude, that's not how you get someone to stop choking you. And like that literally, I don't know why I thought of that other than the fact that someone called me a sadist for like being a trainer. Like my friend was like, you're a sadist for being into that. And in my head, I was like, that's not how you get someone to stop choking you. But I wasn't actually choking him, so I just wrote it down. But it's like, that was still spurred by something someone said to me.
Yeah, it's funny because once you start doing this, I'm noticing it more and more that it's like everything that happens to you, you start thinking of it in terms of like how this could be a joke.
Seriously, no, people, it's such a problem. It's such a problem in comedy because people make bad decisions and be like, I'll do it for the bit though. And I'm like, okay. Like,
I used to always say do it for the podcast.
Cost?
So literally I would always do dumb shit and I'd be like, it's for the podcast.
At what cost? Seriously.
My dignity, that is cost usually. But they're not wrong technically.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think what I think is cool about you too is like you still manage, like you're very in this and all this stuff, but you still manage to have like a life outside of it. And I think that's so important because I'm like, if you're only doing it 24/7, like where's your material gonna come from?
I mean, to me, I don't know, you'll probably relate to this. Personally, I've never had just one friend group either. Like I've had, because of multiple interests, you end up having friends from like different areas of your life, right? And so it's like you might have your core friends that it's like we aren't just friends because of what we're into, but all the other people you hang out with, it's because of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so like, like it's just very strange to me when I see the comics and like all they do is comedy and all the people they know are comedians. Like, because personally, I'm like, I have a huge network in the health industry, like the alternative health industry. I have a huge network in like, I don't know what else, but like other shit, like at marketing, business and marketing. I was like, what's the other one? But it's like, so it's like, and those are 2 that I can think of, but then there's all these other people, right? Like, it's just weird to me that they don't get sick of everyone, quite honestly. Like, I love the comics. I
Yeah.
hang out with them multiple times a week.
Right.
I do a shit ton of shows with them, but I still want some space after a while.
Yeah.
And I like I said before I came on here, I literally came in arms swinging, being like, I forget comics are fuckable. I don't want to date comics. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it can't be your everything. You gotta pick and choose some other stuff because you need a life to be relatable to the normal people.
Right.
Normal people aren't hanging out at Creek in the Cave at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, sorry.
I can definitely see why it happens though, is because it's like if you are doing that so often, it's like when the fuck else are you gonna have time? And also like I've had people like I was trying to like still hinge date when I first started doing this, and they'd like try to take me out on nights, and I'd be like, sorry, I have Mike, sorry, I have this, and it's like, can we have a date at 9 a.m. on Wednesday? Are you free?
Like, yeah, that's actually. Are you giving us the light?
That's comic brain right there.
I've been doing enough comedy shows. I was like, how do I signal here?
I was like, oh
my god, you really were giving us the light.
He was giving us the light.
That's
funny.
funny.
We need to reset the camera.
So sometimes he'll take like behind the scenes boomerangs for me. So I just thought he like fucked up the flash. I actually need to look at this.
Yeah, dating a comedian is so weird because if it's a comedian that's really trying to like get somewhere in their career, like comedy is gonna come first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's like also respectable to me.
It's respectable, but it makes it super hard.
Yeah.
Like,
well, especially if you're in the same thing, it's like you have to be very careful about someone's not gonna be like competitive with you in a negative way.
Yeah, there's that, but I mean, like, I'm talking logistically, right? Like, just schedule wise, like making time to see one another.
Yeah.
It's my last long-term relationship, like, it worked because he didn't give a fuck what I was doing late at night. Like, he trusted me, which obviously matters, but also it's like he worked remote also during the day. Mm-hmm. So it's like we could see each other. I knew that was gonna happen. We could see each other during the day and co-work or whatever, or like he didn't care if I would come over after like a show or something, or he would come out with me sometimes, not really. But you know what I mean? So it's like we had slightly different schedules, but because we both worked from home, we still had enough time to see each other. So it's like oftentimes it's going to have to look kind of untraditional, especially since for comics, a lot of the times the weekends are the craziest days of the week for us, you know, even if it's nothing more than socializing. Like I wasn't on a show last night, but I went to the Kill Tony 10th anniversary.
Well, the hang is
and
such
the
a big
after
part
party.
of it.
That's networking
it's
for us.
It's such a big part of it.
So it's like, you definitely need someone who like is okay with the late nights and is either down to join for some of them if that's how they want to spend their time with you, or they trust you enough to not be doing some fuck shit when they're not around.
Which is also the other like complexity, and I don't know, I'm curious if you've run into this. I know you were in like a long relationship stuff, so I'm not sure how long you've been single. We'll get into that, but like I found too, what's hard to not get involved in that as well is because non-comics I found are typically a lot of, and it's usually insecure men, that's part of the problem, but there's a lot of men that like don't like knowing that you write or are going to tell jokes or like do my podcast about like sex and dating.
Right.
So it's like, I've ran into that too. Like a lot of them are like not cool with it, or they're like so worried about being turned into material.
Yeah, the thing about being worried about being turned into material is so interesting to me. Well, personally, like maybe that we can talk about this as a boundary, like as an artist, because like personally, if I write a joke that's about someone that like the audience can figure out who it's about, like AKA my partner, because you're likely to see me with them off stage, I'll run it by my partner and make sure that it's okay, or even if I'm casually dating them, like whatever. But I also don't necessarily talk about specifics of dating on stage too much. I just don't find it interesting to talk about, maybe because I'm not one of those people who necessarily like just goes out a bunch. And I was in a relationship for 3 years, so that was part of it. And I just didn't really feel like I needed to write material about it. I also think
there's like a tasteful, very anonymous way to do it about past experiences.
Yeah, I mean, now I don't give a fuck. People can know that it's about my ex-fiance. Literally, I start a joke right now by being like, I'm celebrating an anniversary, and you can see my ring, and the audience cheers, and I'm like, thanks, it's the ring I bought myself a year ago after I dumped my fiance. And then they cheer harder. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't really care that they know it's about him, but I also like archived all of the photos he's tagged in on my Instagram, and they're not going to see him with me anymore. So it's like I did some things to try and not make it obvious who he is to other than to the people who knew him when I bring him around. But
that's like the flag to me with a lot of these men that have like expressed that worry, is because I can tell they're worried about it, not necessarily in terms of like me talking about them while you're together, because I agree that as a boundary they're worried about, but then like you're already anticipating that this isn't going to work out and that something bad is going to happen, and to me that's a flag. If you're already worried that I'm going to have bad shit to say about you,
that's true.
Like, which to be fair,
I actually really like that as a red flag.
It's true.
I'm glad that
like,
you said that.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to be careful though, because I always make this joke on here. The long distance situation I was in last year. I've talked about this pretty openly on here. He knows I talk about it. But he was like into like had a party drug problem. He's sober now, but like we literally, when we met, I told him that I was like going to be launching this podcast because I was about to move and I was trying to basically like not get involved with anyone. I met like right before I moved, and I was just like basically trying to red flag myself. Like I was like, I'm gonna be talking about all this shit. Like you better like blah blah. And he was like, oh, you won't have anything bad to say about me.
I was gonna say that's also a red flag because it could be a narcissist. It's and this is the one that we talked about that was highly
the one before this, the guy after, the one before. But this guy definitely had like a lot going on. But
it's like there's definitely a fine line. It's so weird. People like it's funny to hear the dudes talk about like the dude comics complain like what their complaints are for dating versus like what mine are. Yeah. Like literally one of them last night was like, he's like, I've had to end 2 dates now because girls asked me for autographs. And like, it was someone that isn't super he's known, but I'm not going to say who it was. But it was like, it was just interesting because I was like, that's a totally different experience than a girl could ever expect.
No.
He was like, they had like swiped right because they were fans. And I was like, that's cool and all. And I get why you ended the date, obviously. But like, for me, I'm concerned that he's going to just like shit on my career the whole time.
Right.
Or like, because I was like, usually it's like, they don't take you seriously. They literally will crack it as a joke to be like, oh, have you met Joe Rogan? You know, or, oh, do you know so? And it's like, actually, like, sorry, you know,
actually,
like,
yes.
Actually, yes. And, but it's like, so, or they'll do the thing where it's like, oh, I've always wanted to do stand-up.
Oh
That's the other cliche.
Me and it's just belittles. Talk about this.
Like, it just belittles it. Yeah. I feel like it's a
every man thinks that he's like funny enough to be a comedian.
Yeah, I think it's a dead horse. Well, because here's the thing, like if we're looking at dating from like a God's perspective for a second here, what makes men attractive? If they aren't physically attractive, they need to gain resources and a personality. For women, if they aren't looking that great, they need to try to look better. Like it really is very looks dependent. This is gonna sound very misogynistic. But true. But for women, like if we're talking about in terms of attracting a mate, it's like if you're not an attractive dude, you need to be attractive based on your resources, your discipline, your personality, you know, your funniness. And then for women, it's like, you need to try and look better. And if you don't, like, it's usually like, be a good person. Like they're looking for kindness. They're looking for a woman who can make them feel like they're making a lot of achievements. Like dudes want a girl who's supporting them and like, you know, looking up to them and making them feel like a man, right? So it's like, even if you're not the hottest girl in the world, but you can offer that to a man, like that's super huge, right? But it's like, it's so different what we're looking for. But men just like they all want to think that they can be funny because they know that can help them attract a mate. So then when they find out that there's a girl who's funny, that's actually a red flag to a lot of men.
It's scary. It's like intimidating.
It is, because
I've been called intimidating by like 3 men I've been on dates with.
I've gotten that all the time. But you know, if you're scared of a female who can banter with you, like that's another issue. I'm sorry, you know, like
because I'm looking for that.
Well, because to me, like dudes, it's funny too. You ask a guy like his ideal woman, and he'll say the things that I said, you know, pretty supportive of me, nice, kind, nurturing, things like that. But then like a lot of them will also say, well, I want her to be my friend. What do you do with your friends? You talk shit with your friends, you work out with your friends, you know, you go eat with your friend, like all the shit that you do with your friends. So it's like, it's kind of want a little bit of that like banter and broiness, you would hope, but a lot of men actually don't when it comes down to it. Even though they say they do. But
producer Caleb and I've had this conversation before because I've had like a lot, like I mean him included, obviously I've had like a lot of very close platonic male friends, like genuinely platonic friends. And I've always been like, I love that, but then I've been in my head before where I've been like, sometimes I feel like I'm like too broy is like what happens. And so, but then I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, most men have told me that they would like really like to basically, if they would want to fuck their best friend, that's who they would want to be a partner with. Like, because they do, like, you're like, if you have somebody that wants to go do all the same shit as you, like all that stuff, like obviously you still have your own separate interests, but it's like, why wouldn't you want somebody you can like riff and do those things with and also can wear both hats? Like obviously, you can still be, you can be sincere, you can be funny and like have that masculine energy and still be like sexy and feminine too. Like it's like the fucking duality of it that a lot of men can't process.
Well, that's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is like the masculine, feminine stuff. Like it's just like, I went on a rant about this last night with someone actually. It's like, you see women like us today. I think, putting on a lot of masculine stuff because we had the encouragement from society and our parents maybe, or whoever, that like, no, girls can do the same thing as guys if you want. And like, I'm so thankful for that freedom. We are so lucky to be living in the time we are, but also it's kind of turned to a point where men are scared to step up in a way that they need to, because women have been told you can do everything on your own. So then now women are like, they're told you not only can you do it on your own, but you are a boss bitch if you do it on your own. And like, that's what you should aspire to be. You don't need no man. So then you see these women putting on all these masculine traits, which they will do when there's not a man around to like support them, right? And I don't mean that you need a man to support you, but like, if you're in a relationship with a man and you don't have to do all the masculine shit, he's naturally going to take some of that on. He's going to like it. Men want to be helpful. And yeah, but like now we just see all these women displaying all these masculine qualities because we were told we had to, and then the men are scared of us because we're showing these masculine qualities. That was a huge thing that I focused on after my last breakup because people call my ex-fiance my girlfriend all the time. I literally said this last night. I taught him how to change his tire. I taught him how to hunt. Like all these different things where it's like, that's not a problem to me, but he wasn't stepping up like a man in any of the aspects really. And it made me realize like, oh, because I'm stepping up in all of these ways, I attracted a dude that needed me for that.
That makes sense. And
so the last year, it's like, I'm not saying I'm changing my personality, but like the things that I show if I'm like interested in someone romantically are different at first. I'm still going to be that driven person. I'm still going to be, you know, doing all my shit, but it's like when I'm around him, if he is a man that is like worthy of that respect of being a man, it's like, I'm not, you know, I'm not going to like try and like throw my card down to pay. If you offer to pay, I'm not going to fight you over it. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You know, like if he offers to help me with something, oh my gosh, yes, please. Thank you so much. Like actually like allowing him and also allowing him to like do those, because men like that, you know, and it's just something I had to realize over the last year. Is like, I literally made myself sick in that last relationship because I was doing all of it. And he wasn't willing to step up and do it. And I felt that. So I was extra anxious because now I had two people to take care of.
No, that makes so much sense.
But
it's
that was
true.
A long rant. I apologize.
No, I really
it's just
really
something I've really
that.
Thought of a lot.
No, I think you made a lot of good points there because it is something that is like interesting. Like, I think there's so much conversation, and I've had it on here with other guests before about like what you're putting out does affect what you attract. You tend to attract people in similar places as you, but also like one of my favorite things, I had a roommate one time and she was like, you know, the age old saying of like opposites attract. And she's like, I don't think opposites attract. She's like, I think you attract what you like, what you feel like you're lacking.
Complementary wounds actually is usually how I would put it.
Like I don't think it's necessarily about like your opposites in terms of like your personality or your interests or like whatever else, but like if I see something in you that feels like I don't have that and I want to grow that piece or whatever else, like to balance that out. I think that's like, that makes so much sense to like what you're speaking on. And it's, again, it's not like I'm dampening any part of myself. I actually said this to the person I was talking to about this last night too. It's like, I'm not going to change how I am. Like right now I'm single. I have to be everything for myself. I'm great with that. I feel great, but I also I'd like to be taken care of sometimes.
But the thing that I learned in my last relationship was like, I feel like even though he was not stepping up as a man in the way I needed him to, I still felt like I love the sense of security of having a man. Like I feel like when you're single, there's a little bit of pressure to like, oh, like in case there's someone here, like there's a little bit more of that performance thing that like, I didn't give a fuck when I had my boyfriend because I'm nothing about me wants to cheat. So like once I have a guy,
I'm like a very horse blinder person if I'm into you. It's like I don't.
I'm painfully monogamous, and so it's like
I feel that. I feel that.
Literally.
I have so many friends that are, and I'm always like, honestly, that sounds so fun.
I know. I'm like, I wish I could.
We've talked about this extensively.
And so it's like whatever, but so it's like it's nice to have that, but like. Now I know what I am looking for. Because someone asked me last night, like, are you a dominant woman? Like, do you want to be dominant? I said, I am a dominant woman, but I want a more dominant man. It's like that's all that's changed for me. It's like, okay, I'm a dominant woman with a lot of goals, but it's like, no, I know there's a man that's more dominant than me, and if he deserves the respect of me, like, you know, kind of being more feminine around him and like you know, giving him that power, I guess, if you want to call it submission, like that's a dirty word to a lot of people, but I call it submission. It's like, he has to earn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just need someone that's more dominant and responsible and respectful.
For sure.
Yeah,
I literally had a guy.
That's what a high standard is to me now.
Yeah, which I think is great. I feel that deeply because it is. I want someone that's gonna like cheer me on and support and not make me feel like I used to like water down a lot of parts of me and the things that I wanted to do for men.
Yeah.
Like I was afraid of coming across too like abrasive or too like crude or like that I have too much going on. It's like I have sometimes had to play the like I'm dumber than I am game. Like I used to do that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I just like after I went through that breakup and then especially like that is what I always, and I've told him this as well, like the guy that I did get involved in that long distance mess is like he was one of the first guys that I was into that really made me feel like I could be myself. And he was like impressed by it or just like didn't mind, like he didn't care that I had this stuff. Even now he's told me, I do know still, but like when I saw him like a few months ago, he's like I still listen.
Yeah.
And like I was like, and he knows that I talk about this shit. And so
Right.
it's like that was like so freeing to me in that experience. And like I'll always be grateful for that because it showed me that it's like even if it's not you, there's
Right.
men out there that will like accept that I'm like this and can either match it or like be above it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool versus like the first Hinge date I ever went on in Nashville. I told this story in the podcast, but I literally, this man on the first date told me I had dyke energy. That is literally what he said to me. And like tried to tell me as like a compliment. Like he tried to like dig himself out of it.
I'm into that.
Yeah, like I was literally like, so because this man out of the blue on my date, I won't like recap this too long for my loyal listeners, but he was literally like, randomly, he just goes, so have you ever been with a woman in the middle of our date? And I was like, like kinda, like no, like what do you, like I was like not like it's not like a thing for me. Like I was like I hang out with girls when I'm drunk,
Right.
like you know whatever. Like and he was just like he's like I just like think a lot about sexuality and stuff. And he's like I'm just like kind of surprised, and I was like why? And he's like well you just gotta give dyke energy, and I was like the fuck does that mean?
Okay, fellas, let's do a lesson really fast. Things not to say to a woman when you're trying to fuck her.
Yeah.
Gee, you look like a lesbian.
And
wow, you're just as hot as my brother. Damn, you remind me of my grandma. 3 things you shouldn't say.
Have any of those been said to you?
No, those were just equal to what he said to you.
Yeah,
those were off the cuff. Yeah.
My favorite part
Come
of this
back for an
podcast.
updated version when I thought about it more.
When I bring women on here and tell their stories, my favorite part is producer Caleb just sits there like in apology for the male species, like on camera. Like
I
he's
know,
just like
the number of times Caleb has just done this.
yeah. He's
so
like
ashamed.
he doesn't suck, so it's like painful for him. He's like baffled usually by the shit people are on here talking about. He's like, he's like, no wonder like this is why you guys are all like this. Like
No wonder you guys all ended up in comedy.
yeah, truly. But yeah, and then I asked this man, I was like, what do you mean by that? Because he was like, well, you just like, you're really into this. Was like, I was only like 4 months out of doing my shows and stuff. So I wasn't like jacked. I was a bikini girl. So, but I still wasn't even like, I wasn't like as thick as I am now or anything. And he was just like, he's like, well, you're just like into like the weightlifting things. And I was like, sexist. But then he's like, and you like run a business and like, you're just like really confident. And I was like, those are just traits of like a woman, like a successful woman. I literally said to him, I said, so you've never been on a date with a woman before? And he's like, I go out with women all the time. I was like, well, it sounds like you've been out with girls.
Yeah, I was like, you go take out high school girls?
Yeah, and he was just like, well, he was also like super drunk on our date, and he had 1 whiskey. I'm like, were you drinking before this date? Like, he was like, I just didn't eat all day, and I was like, this is
no way.
He also like said his profile said he was like 5'11", and he was definitely like 5'7". Like it was a lot. Yeah, that was my first ever online date. I didn't go on another one for almost 1.5 years.
Jeez.
So I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, online dating, I don't know.
It's terrible.
Yeah, to me, it's not worth it most of
No.
the time. Like, also, because it's like, even if you get to the point where you go on a date with someone, like, what if, like, you actually meet them in person? It's like, I've gone on several online dates, I mean, years ago now,
Yeah.
but, like, several online dates where it's like, I thought you were super hot in your pictures, and then we show up and nothing about the pheromones lines up. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even that you look different than your
Yeah,
pictures.
it's a chemistry
just,
thing.
like, nah.
That's the thing. Is like
Nature
so
doesn't want
interesting.
this, bro. Like,
Well, what's so interesting is we talk about this with like all me and my girlfriends have like radically different types of men we find attractive. And
Dude,
so like
me too.
attraction is so
me and
subjective.
Destiny talk about this
Yes,
all the time
and so-
because she'll send me a picture of a guy and be like, he's so hot, and
And
I'm
you're
like, you're
like,
retarded.
And that, yeah, and that's like what I mean is like I think that's what
I mean, he
it's
looks
like
like he's got leukemia. Sorry.
I'm really good friends with Greg Phelps.
Yes,
and
yeah.
we like are really close, so we roast each other's types all the time, like to each other. And he sends me a thing the other day, and he said, "This is your type," and he was sure to include in the Google search like what he Googled, and that made it way funnier. It said tattooed heroin addicts, and I was like,
Are you into like the MGK type guy?
Not quite to that extreme, but close.
Oh god, yeah, that's Destiny too.
Yeah,
that's so nasty.
I don't like that level of like, I don't like that level of like the hair and all that stuff.
Right.
But I love a tall, skinny, white tattooed fucking man.
Dude,
yeah, like I like them to have some kind of build, like that they are like active, but they don't need to be like jacked.
Distance runner.
And and like if they're tall, it's just it's a whole thing. And if they're covered in tattoos and they just look like they're very damaged. That's it. I have a whole new bit about this. Like I love a sad boy. It's like my thing.
This is my new boyfriend. He's a rescue.
Yeah, no, literally, it's like Kylie's Rehabilitation Center for Broken Men. Like that is my business I'm running. All my friends have roasted me about this forever. Like, yeah, it's a problem. But I'm getting out of it. I'm like working on healing. I am. I'm doing better. I've been like talking.
Caleb's like, we're working on it.
I've been talking to like nice men
Solid
lately,
progress.
and I'm like really doing okay.
Good.
Like it's, men that aren't my normal type, and like, but the whole point of that lead-in is like, to your point, it's like there are men that even that I've been attracted to that like physically I wouldn't have been, but their energy and charisma. Part of it, the guy was a narcissist, so there's that. But like my ex that I dated for that long, I think about that all the time. I met him like at a bar, and when he came up to me, it was just like. It was the chemistry of it all.
If
I would have seen that man on an app, I would have hit left.
Same.
Like I look back at a picture of us from that night, like it was like a New Year's Eve, so there's like we took like this picture with like all these people, and I don't even know I met him there, and I like looked at it and I was like, ew. Like even while we were dating, I looked back and I was like, what the fuck? But like it was his energy. So like that's the thing, is like the more you can like vibe with someone or get to know them, like that attraction changes. But something beautiful that my friend pointed out to me though when we were talking about kind of being hard on ourselves about like, how hot you are, like that's attracting men and all this stuff. And I had pointed out, because her and I have radically different types, and I pointed out this guy that was at the bar we were at, and I was like, this guy, if he had more tattoos, is like my exact type. And she was like, yeah, I would never fuck that guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I was like,
Exactly.
all the guys she's dated, I'm always like, ugh. And like, so we were talking about it, and she was like, shouldn't that make us feel better? Because that has to work both ways. Like to somebody, you are, even if that person's like, no, somebody else, you're like exactly their type. Like, and she's like, what sucks is for me, I feel like the people that are my type, I'm not theirs. Like,
that's what sucks.
That's the hard part,
people,
but it's so subjective.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would say like my general type, I don't have like, because some people are like, oh, I date, like exclusively these races. I don't care about like race or anything like that, or even tattoos, but it's definitely like, I want you to be like a gorilla.
Yeah.
I realize that now. It's like, I want you to be like really fit and like, you don't have to be huge, but I want you to be like taller than me and like into fitness and like, take care of yourself and stuff like that. It's just like the baseline, but
yeah, it's funny because I didn't really used to. I feel like until my ex, and it's not like that. Like I feel like it's maybe because I was with him for so long. It's not even that I like was trying to still date people like him, but I don't know if it was part of that or what. I've always been attracted to guys like that, but most of the people I dated or been into before, they really only had the like body type in common.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't always the thing, but it's like once I was with somebody that kind of like had that look and stuff, I feel like I realized I really do like that.
Right.
And so then it was just like after that, it felt like that was it. And I still have like different people that I'll be attracted to that don't have it. So it's not like if you don't have tattoos, I'm not, well, okay, if you have no tattoos.
Deal breaker.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day.
What can you do? I was like, where are your tattoos?
I have like 13.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, mine are pretty well.
Yours are well placed though.
Yeah,
you're not a sleep girl.
Yeah, no, I would like to be, but I just like, it's been a process. My parents hate tattoos. And so I got like 2 and they were appalled. And every time I come home, I have like, they have no idea. I have like literally 13. They would be like, what the fuck? But it's just, I don't know. I find it's just like very attractive to me. I don't know. But also me and Caleb joked about this on his episode. I was like, have you ever met a person that's heavily tattooed that doesn't have mental health issues? I'm serious though. Like when you think about it.
Describe heavily. How many tattoos do I have? Fuck.
I think if you have more than like, I was telling you, I was like, if you have like the simple, like if I like just had this or something like that, a little girl.
I have like
tattoos.
6.
Yeah.
And most of them are little and girly. These are 3.
I'd say you're approaching the territory.
I've got a big one on my back. Well, not big, but it's like across the lotus.
Yeah.
That's 2 tattoos.
Do you consider yourself mentally well?
Hopefully. I don't know. I feel like I said this on a podcast yesterday. I feel like I'm severely unmedicated ADHD for sure.
Yeah.
But that's not like illness necessarily. I would say it's an advantage for how many things I'm interested in.
Yeah, I feel that. That's like, though, my thing is I'm like, maybe I'm not necessarily attracted to the tattoos, just that tends to be that sad boy that tends to be covered in tattoos. Like that's part of it. And it's like, it is if you really think about it though, it's like you're deciding to do this thing that's like, it might mean something to you, but usually that's like if you're getting emotional tattoos, that's usually probably for some reason too. Or it's like you like to go sit just and be in pain. Like Caleb and I used to like jokingly text when we would be like upset about something, and he'd be like, I feel like a tattoo today. Like, I was like, yeah, same. Like,
it's like a little catharsis.
I like texted him once and I was like, do you feel like tattoos like feel better when you're sad? And he's like, yeah. Like I'll go there and I'm like, this doesn't even hurt as much as my real life. Like, it's like what's the word? This is, people will hate this, but it's basically like acceptable self-harm.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like it is. It's like, I mean,
you could call a rage workout that too. You know what I mean?
For
sure. So it's like,
you mentioned a lot of stuff about the dynamic between you and your ex-fiance.
Yeah.
Like, what are you comfortable talking about? Like, what made you end? I mean, that's pretty big deal to end an engagement, right? Producer Caleb's done it as well.
How come a meeting? I met another girl.
I told him that yesterday. I was like, I literally talked to 3 people yesterday who like
you introduced me to what was her name?
Carly.
Yeah.
I just told him about that today.
Yeah, there's a guy that runs that goes to Squatch named Seth Rogers. He runs a podcast called Texas. He's super funny. He's like an actor, but like he also like I got on their podcast and he was like we both ended engagements, and I was like, I didn't know this about you, Seth. It's
well, I think it's just an intrigue. I mean, I think everybody's always intrigued. It's like you got far enough into like, okay, I'm gonna marry this person, and then like deciding that before, which I think that's a really good way though to like you have to start thinking about things like I'm about to do this.
Well, because engagement, it is like, I mean, they tell you that too, even if it's like, you want to marry this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, everyone says they know they want to marry this person when they go into an engagement, but then it's like, people do say the engagement is a trial period, right? And it's like, your mindset does shift. It's like, in theory, engagement and marriage sounds great, but then when you're actually engaged and you're actually thinking about like, not even just planning the logistics of a wedding, which are stressful enough if you're doing a regular wedding, you're not eloping or whatever, but it's like, then thinking about like, okay, now I'm really analyzing like how we interact and like how things move together and like, is this gonna be my life, and it was very, I mean, it's a long story, it always is. I met him in person also, and I was laughing when he said you wouldn't have swiped right on that guy, because I probably wouldn't have swiped right on my fiance either, but like, I mean, he was actually probably closer to your type than I would have described. Like he was tall cross country runner type. Yeah. He was doing CrossFit at the time, so he was like a little bit bulkier than that, but not much. You could tell he was just like tall, lean guy, no tattoos though. But
red flag.
No red flag. But yeah, he literally, like, I was working at a conference, like a booth at a conference for a supplement company, and he came up and ordered a supplement drink from me, and we ended up just talking, and he asked me out, and I was impressed by that, right? Great very fast relationship. Like now looking back, it's like all the red flags of a narcissist, like love bombing in the beginning, like literally told me he loved me after 6 weeks of casually dating. And then like introduced me to his parents that same weekend. And then like, we weren't even officially boyfriend and girlfriend until like 3 months after that, So,
parallels always are paralleling.
And then it's like, I mean, we mentioned like, when I met him, he was like, I would say he was like woo curious. Mm-hmm. Like he wasn't raised religious, but he liked to meditate. He found a lot of benefit from it, things like that. And then kind of as the relationship progressed, he got super woo. And like, I can get down with the woo. I'm wearing crystals. I said that before the podcast too. It's like, I can get down with the crystals. I was raised Christian though. So it's like, I still kind of stick to those principles. Like I'm open to other stuff, but it's like, I like what Christianity teaches, and I feel very strongly about the story of Jesus and just what that means for us, like the story of forgiveness and like love no matter what, unconditional love, things
it's like the
that.
Healthy approach to Christianity.
And so I mean, we had some disagreements there or whatever, but it's like, again, looking back, there's so many more red flags that I just kind of brushed off, but like toward the end, it was just like so we got engaged, and then he had moved in with
How long were you together before you got engaged?
2.5 years.
Okay.
And then, so we got engaged in December. I broke up with him at the end of April. So we got engaged in December. He moved in with my roommate and I on March 1st.
And when was this?
This was last year, 2022. Okay. He moved in with my roommate and I March 1st. And he moved in because like we had like 2-3 more months of our lease left. His lease had broken. So we were like, let's just do this for now. And if it works, actually, this is very cheap for all 3 of us to stay in this house, and we can extend the lease. And if not, he and I will just go find our own place.
It's
right?
so wild. My first place with my narc ex was also with a roommate. Oh my roommate. Like it's just really funny.
So let's see if this also lines up. I was definitely like stressed with him in the house. Like we weren't used to sharing a room all the time, things like that. And we had talked about like, if we moved out, we were going to get a 2-bedroom so we could have our own space if we needed. Like, and that doesn't bother me. I think, if you're in a relationship and you want
We
your
did
own
this.
room,
Yeah,
I don't
we
think
did
that's
that.
a problem.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like still, I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I knew I was generally stressed, whatever. But then like, I could tell my roommate didn't like him pretty close off the bat, which is, I could tell she didn't like him before he moved in, which was a huge red flag already because she's my best friend. She's like my sister, and she was gonna be my maid of honor probably, you know. I hadn't asked it, we hadn't planned anything about the wedding either. He had no initiative to plan anything, and I didn't really want to plan anything, which was also a red flag. But yeah, so like whatever, but it made me sad that her and my other good friends didn't seem to like him. But no one wanted to like say anything really, but I could just tell. And then as he was living with us, my roommate, like I would say maybe a month went by, and my roommate finally was like, dude, I have to tell you something. And I was like, what's going on? And she was like, I think he's drinking. And he had a problem with alcohol our whole relationship. And, you know, I mean, I had been like, I kind of had given him I don't like ultimatums, but it felt kind of to me like a Hail Mary last chance situation after my brother's wedding. Actually, he got so drunk at my brother's wedding. People were asking where he was at one point, and I had to go, he's like laying out in the field somewhere. Like I had to go find him, and it was so embarrassing.
He's not from Nashville, but
no, he's no.
It's like just the parallel.
Exactly. And so like at that night I was like, you cannot keep drinking like this. Like I'm not gonna be with you this time next year if you haven't figured out this alcohol thing. And he did stuff, he wouldn't go to therapy. But he did other stuff that was supposed to help with drinking. Like he saw like alternative therapists for other shit, but not actual therapists.
I got hooked on Kratom as a replacement.
Dude, we can talk about that, but luckily mine didn't do that, but geez, anyway, so like I thought he had it under control by the time we were engaged. And I was like, why do you say that? And she had told me that she was sitting downstairs with her sister one night, and they noticed him coming downstairs and like taking a shot of whiskey every cup.
It's like,
but then also like literally, actually before that, the first red flag was my roommate. I said she's a DJ. She throws these huge Bollywood parties like quarterly in Austin. Like 1,000 people come through to these things, and I work the door for them. So her and I were at one of those parties one night. He was at home. We come back, it's like 3 a.m., right? We had to shut down the venue, do all that shit. We come home at like 3, we're eating, whatever. And she notices, I don't know how she noticed it. Maybe the bottle was by the recycling or something, but a nice bottle of whiskey was like empty. And like, you know, she noticed it, and she was like, did you drink this? And I was like, no. She was like, I think Alex drank this. And I was like, oh. And so that was kind of one red flag.
Was he like parading to you that he was sober, or just that he wasn't like drinking regularly?
It was that he had it under control.
Right. Like,
like he like, oh, I could enjoy a drink, you know, in the evening or whatever. And it turned out that he had finished this bottle, and it wasn't even her bottle. It was one she was holding for a friend, this really nice bottle. Wow. And so that was like, what the fuck, bro? And he like just didn't understand why that was bad. And also because he had been drunk that night, he had left the new puppy we had out, who then got into the pantry, tore up a bunch of shit. He left the mess, and the puppy was sick for a week, you know? So it's like, okay, first red flag. So then, she approaches me. She's like, I think he's been drinking. She's like, you know, I saw him coming down and taking these shots of whiskey and then rinsing his mouth out with water before going back up to y'all's room. And she was like, I'm just going to watch him. And it turned out every night that I would go out to do comedy and he stayed home, he would like walk to the corner store by our house and get a couple drinks and just drink them on the way home, and then hide the cans or bottles in his car. And because we noticed our trash bags going away too. And so we realized he was like taking extra trash bags to wrap the shit from his car. He would take one, put all the bottles in there, wrap it in another one, and then put both of those bags underneath all of our other trash bags in our trash one, not even the recycling one. He wanted to make sure like we thought it was just trash. And so that was obviously really sus. But then I mean, you know, it's like that was kind of the final thing where I was like, bro, you're lying again. Like and
not only is it not under control, but you're lying to me about it.
Exactly. And he was so like, and I was like, I can't trust you anymore. You were lying to me about this. What else are you lying to me about? And he literally was like, the alcoholism isn't me. It's a part of me that needs healing. And I don't understand your logic that I could be lying to you about other things. Like, it's just this thing. And I'm like, it's like, that's such a narcissistic way to go about it. And yeah, I mean, you know, there was
especially the whole like
that was the thing that caused it, but there was I look at it now and I'm just like, yo, I would have been in debt.
Yeah.
He had like lost his job and did nothing to replace it. You know, he was already in debt, like drinking, the spiritual shit didn't line up, and like just it was a mess. But yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And actually, like the day that I realized I was getting sick from him, like just from the anxiety of being around him.
Oh yeah.
It was April Fool's Day. I was driving to Dallas to open for Jen Fulweiler, who has given me so many opportunities since I started comedy. And I was just like, at this point, like I was underweight. I wasn't exercising. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't keep food down. Anytime I ate, it was just diarrhea. Like and my mom thought I was anorexic again, which again, yeah. So she thought I was like not eating again. And I was like, no, I'm eating. I don't understand what's happening. I literally did not know what was happening.
Yeah. Your body tries to give you so many signs.
And dude, Destiny Lane, one of my other really good friends, had been talking to me about just something else. And she knew I was driving to Dallas to open for Jen that day. And she's just like, hey, I think you should call your grandma. And I guess from her end, what had happened was her and Anubi were discussing, like, Allison is not in a good place. She's clearly sick. Yeah. Like, Anubi was like, I hate this guy. He's clearly making her stressed, and that's why she's sick. And they just didn't know what to do as my friends to be like, we hate your fiance.
Yeah.
And so Destiny was like, I think she needs to talk to her family, and she knows I'm very close with my grandma. So she's like, I think Ma needs a call. And I was like, you know what? I'm driving to Dallas. You're right. I'll call Ma. And I ended up talking with her and telling her kind of how I was feeling. She's like, how are you? And she just was like, do you think your stress has to do with Alex moving in? And I just started crying, and I was like, I think I haven't wanted to admit that. Yeah. But yeah. And you know, she's dealt with her own love and loss stories. Yeah. So from her perspective, she was like, you got to take care of yourself, girl. If you can't do that with him in your life. Yeah. And yeah, so that was a long-winded tale, but those were the main things that caused it to end. Yeah. But there were, again, so many red flags. And you know, you look at, and I was so angry at myself mostly, because it's like there were so many times I could have ended that relationship sooner. I should have ended it sooner, and I just kept giving him chances. But like, in my defense, I hadn't had a boyfriend before that. Like, he was my first adult boyfriend. Like, I had dated one guy in high school for a bit.
I think they see people like that as well. Yeah. Honestly, like I remember,
because you don't know, so it's like you're easily manipulated.
Yeah, and they can sense that like kindness and empathy in someone too. Yes. Wow. Yeah, I'm so sorry that you went through all that too, but it's so cool to see, like, you know, where you're at now and how much like just getting out of those kind of situations changes your entire fucking
It's literally crazy what has happened in my life in this past year. Like, like since the breakup, it's like I actually booked a trip to India with Anubi, my roommate, best friend, because she's Indian and her family's all over there. We've been wanting to go there together since we were in third grade. I booked that trip before I broke up with him. I was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to break up with him until it happened, actually, but it was like, I booked that trip. So it's like, I broke up with him. I lived a month in India. 2 months later, I came back, and just so many comedy opportunities. Yeah. Like, my reels started going viral. I got to go perform in Denmark with Jason Rouse. Like, I got Litty Titty Tuesday. Yeah. It's like, all these things happened. And yeah, you know, it's just kind of proof too that it's like, if something's not working for you and you get rid of it, like, not to say I got rid of him, you know what I mean? You just, you got to shift. Yeah. You know, is
that the camera?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I know, you're good. I was also wondering what that was.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. And you know, you look at someone's behavior post breakup too, and it's just every single narcissist flag. He's living with a girl who looks a lot like him in another country.
Dude,
now,
that's what
he met 2 months after.
I was telling you that last night about the girl. Like, we don't look, I wouldn't say we look alike, like super alike, but we look like we could be like we look like we could be related. Exactly.
Well, yeah, this is, I might not want to, I'll say this. He posted a picture with her 2 months after we broke up, calling her his soulmate. And
the pattern is like
the number of
insane.
people, the number of people who DM'd that photo to, because I have all of his shit on you know.
Exactly what happened.
The number of people who DM'd that photo to me, calling her Goodwill Allison or Wish Allison.
Make-A-Wish Allison. I've heard this before, but from people.
Yes, things like that. Like literally, I had one person who was a mutual friend of both of us DM the picture to me and be like, I thought this was a picture of you guys when I kind of was just scrolling through my feed, and I thought maybe y'all got back together. And she goes, and then I took a closer look and was like, that girl ain't you, honey. But like, you know, I'm sure she's great, and I actually feel
she probably is in the same fucking situation. That's
literally that's what I actually felt the most. Like, one of the weirdest emotions was like I had to resist the urge to like message her and be like, "Girl, run!" Like,
that's why I was telling you last night. The podcast already knows all this because she's literally been on here now. The girl I'm friends with now, but it's like it was the same thing when I saw that picture of them. I felt like no anger towards her. Like I was so hurt.
I felt bad
for
her.
He did it like a month after. It was like a month after our shoot. It was the same thing. Like this man, we were together for 5 years, and he never posted a picture of us once, except for when we were in Thailand. One time. Jeez. Because he posted like a Valentine's Day thing for me one other time. He would always chalk it up to like he hates social media. He only had Facebook. He wouldn't use social media. And
that was different for mine. Mine still has our engagement photo on his feed, followed by our breakup photo that he asked to take when I was crying when we broke up.
That's fucking weird.
And then now it's like pictures of him and another girl, and I'm like, he didn't even archive or delete the photos of, like he would post pictures of just me and write like a long poem about it or some shit. Like, and it's all still on his feed. I'm like, I would feel bad if I were her. That's weird. Yeah,
that's like it's so interesting though. It's like still so many. It's everybody I've talked to that has somebody. Like one of the first friends I made when I moved here, we actually we did this. She made the same joke to me that I said to you, were like, we actually though went and looked to make sure that it wasn't the same guy. Yeah. Because it was like the parallels were just like it's crazy that it really is like it's like a cookie cut on. There's like a narcissist handbook somewhere, and it's like the same shit.
Well, if you look up like the patterns of a narcissist in a relationship, we both went through the love bombing and all that stuff. But then there's like the gaslighting and you know, like slowly they start to make you gaslight yourself. You start thinking you're crazy. And then when you break up with them, there's usually two trajectories. I did my research because like right when I broke up with him, I had already been researching. I was like, this guy has to be a narcissist.
I didn't uncover all of it till after in therapy.
Yeah, well, like this might sound mean. My mom was like, do you think he has a little bit of Asperger's or something? Like she was trying to be nice about it.
People ask me if he was autistic.
Yeah, because he had like lack of empathy.
Yes.
You know, and we have like I have a couple cousins with Asperger's, you know, so she was like, maybe it's that. And I was like, I don't know. So I was Googling all the things and I came across narcissistic personality disorder and I was like, there's no way.
That's why I hate that it's like such a trendy TikTok thing now. Cause I'm like, when you've actually been through it, it's like a very like, it's not everyone that's an asshole is not a narcissist. Like that's not
exactly.
It's very
and I always say that too. I'm like, everyone wants their ex to be a narcissist,
they're not.
But no. So it's like the patterns that we both described leading up to and during the relationship. And then after you break up with them, most of the articles say either they're going to end up with someone else really fast and rub it in your face. Or they're gonna try and get you back.
Yeah, it's like a new
and make it seem like a oh no, I've changed. You know, like it's whatever the thing. There you go. So it's like it's usually those two. But yeah, it's just very weird. And I mean, it's crazy too, because like my ex, he wanted to get together and catch up a couple of months after we broke up.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had been like kind of in communication with him. We had like logistics things. He moved out after we broke up, so it's like obviously we were in contact and like whatever, but yeah, he had wanted to like get together and catch up, but I had noticed on his Instagram stories that he was tagging this girl, and I literally, we were like coordinating the time to meet up, and he like said something about like, you're acting kind of weird, are you sure you're cool to meet up? And I was like, honestly, I literally called her cacao ceremony Allison in your Instagram stories. And I'm a little uncomfortable because I think you're probably dating her. And he was like, actually, yeah. He's like, we're dating and we're deeply in love. Like, I can't control your reaction to that, but it's my heart and I can do what I want with it. If you don't want to get together, I understand. And I literally was like, I don't want to get together. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, after that, which is probably for the best. Yeah. I haven't reached out to him. He's reached out to me multiple times, but like not since my birthday. Cause
we are like fully blocked now, but it's because it's not my fault, but he places it, I'm sure, as my fault that him and his next girlfriend didn't work out because she found all the shit out. Right. But like she found it out because she saw this on herself. But yeah, it was crazy. You're absolutely right. It is those trajectories. We like broke up officially, and it was like, I was very in the bubble still. Like I was very like you said, very brainwashed, very gaslit.
Yeah, you have to get out of it. Yeah,
we broke up, and it was like very civil. Like he moved me into my new apartment. We were like going to be whatever. And then like it was like we stopped, and then he did the whole, like, it was basically he restarted the love bomb. He's like, we can just like work on ourselves as individuals and be better than we ever were. So we did like this bullshit for like 6 months, and then like all the pregnancy shit happened. I've talked about all that on the podcast, but like all that happened, and he literally like 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after we went through all that, which was like super fucking traumatic, and like very emotional, and like
not to mention physically too.
Yes, like hormonally I was still in a crazy place. We got in this like stupid fight about something, and he literally, like, this man I'd been with for 5 years and lived with for 4.5. We got in this fight that night, and he left my place. I didn't know this. He just blocked my number, planned to never speak to me again. I Facebook messaged him because I thought my phone wasn't working, because on no planet did I think this person
instantly blocked.
Yeah, like I was like, my stuff wasn't sending, and I was just like, my phone's being weird. Like, because I was just like, there's no way. Like, and so I messaged him on Facebook, and he basically was like, I blocked your number. I would have blocked you on Hero too, but I don't know how. And he was basically just like, this whole thing, I felt so insanely disrespected. And like, I won't get into the whole, it was so stupid. I told the story, I think, but he basically, that was like our last interaction. We never talked again. And then I found out he went on that first date with that girl 1 week later. Like, it was literally insane. And then he did the same thing. So then he went that direction. Like the next month, it was like a month later, he had this, like the most like romantic looking picture of them that he put on his Facebook. And like, we were still friends on there at that point. And I was like, this was so intentional. And like, and I told her that too when I talked about it, as I was like, I hate saying this. I was like, I don't ever want to demean your experience and like whatever, because I've had to look back.
It was intentional to you.
Like it's been so hard for me to look back and be like, not feel like 5 years of my life were like a fucking fabrication. And it's like, I've had to be like, you know, work through therapy, and then being like, no, those good memories that you have, like when that's part of it, the highs are highs, the lows are low. And she's like, that good stuff, it was real because it was real to you. Like,
yeah, dude, I'm so glad you said that.
It's tough.
Like that was the anger I felt with myself last year.
I wasted all of this time.
I didn't let myself say wasted, but I felt like it was fake. I was like, oh my God. I thought at least when I first ended this that I would be like, well, it sucks this didn't work out, but at least I was in love at once in my life. And then you get out of it and you realize that the person was a narcissist, and you're like, was I in love? And you can't go down that path, because it's like, no, you were in love. And they
the way they loved you in the way that they
could.
Yes. And especially it's deeply, I mean, he has one of the, I've talked about this, he has like one of the most deeply traumatic upbringings that I've ever heard of. It comes from somewhere, like him and his brother both are in different types of dark paths, but like, it's wild, because, but that's the problem, is when they can find the right people who, because of that, I would constantly like make excuses for him. And like, I just had no idea, like when this happened, I truly, that fight and all that, the blocking, I was like devastated, and I thought that I fucked everything up. Like I was like, this was my fault. And I had to go through like all this therapy. I actually went to a women's retreat here in Austin, like a very woo-woo retreat, honestly.
Yeah, of course.
But it helped me. We did very helpful drugs.
Honestly. I was gonna say, I'm gonna ask you whose retreat you went to after, because I probably know that.
She's been on my podcast. We're really good friends. Actually, it's Hannah Deindorfer.
Oh my God, I know who that is. That's so funny.
We're friends.
That's
Yeah,
so
she was a business mentor for me for a while, and then I did a lot of her like development programs, and she's a cool person. But I went to her retreat, and honestly, it changed everything for me, because I was telling this story. It was like only like a month after this happened, and that's when I met the girl that I said we had like this parallel, and she was like, pulled me aside, and she was like, I think your ex is a narcissist. She's like, what you're talking about, she's like, this is not like your fault, like all this stuff. And I was just like, that's crazy. No, he's not, like whatever. And then it was actually wild, like, not to be that bitch, but like we watched the premiere of like the 10-minute like Taylor Swift video that came out, and like there's a scene in the middle where like the fight is like the guy is just like gaslighting her like really bad in this scene. And like we watched the premiere because only me and one other girl cared about it, but they were being nice. And so like we were watching it, and like literally after I had just told this whole thing, like 3 girls came over and just like put their hands on me, because I was like I will never forget it. It was such an out of body experience. I was high, and I was like sitting there, and I'm like watching it, and it was like, it felt like verbatim every fight that we had, like the way that it looked. And then I was like, this is so weird. And then my friend was like, no, they literally are all saying they do the same shit. Thing. And it was just so crazy. Like, that's what I mean. It's wild every time I talk to someone, because even talking about the alcohol thing, like we used to fight about that round and round, and he would be able to turn it into like where I was crazy for having a problem with it. Yeah. Like we would go on dates, and he would have to stop. Like to any date we went on, this was like in the first 6 months. So again, you get mad at yourself about things you ignored. He would stop and get like 2 or 3 like airplane bottles of liquor. Like we were going to go do anything. And I would be like, it started to hurt my feelings, because you're like, do you have to be drunk? That's exactly what I said. I was like, I feel like you don't like me sober. And he would just be like, that's your insecurity that you need to work on. Like, yeah, it was just like, that's what I mean. It was so, I'm so triggered. I know. You were talking about this stuff, and I was just like, holy shit. And it was the same thing. He would like go, and then he would like begrudgingly sometimes be like, I'll cut the drinking or I'll stop. And then his cut back, he would go like him like cutting back would be like 3 tall Budweisers from the gas station nightly.
Not the
liquor, or he like would stop drinking and then he would be like, I'm only gonna do the under control thing. So it's like, I'll wait till the weekend. And then on Friday, he would buy like a 5th of vodka and drink it all straight. Like he would just be sipping. I would come home from it and he would be wasted.
Like straight alcohol.
Oh my God. That's what it was like. And it was insane. And it's just that he always had to have something. Like, it's like I said, when he finally was like, he didn't drink for like, and it's so funny because the girl I'm friends with now, she told us on the podcast, she's like, when she met him that month after me, he was doing sober October. And so I was like, I'm shocked he made it. And so, yeah, he was like love bombing her during that phase. And it was just, she made it through those 8 months. And she's like, dude, I'm mentally fucked from that. So she's like, I just have so much empathy for you. And I'm like, yeah, I have a CPTSD diagnosis. Like literally I do. And it's like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy just how similar it was. Like when I will never forget her sending me that first email about it. Like when I read it, it was just like,
so she literally figured it out by finding a podcast episode?
So she basically, I'll do my best to be the short version of this, is that I'm very social media active.
Right.
We have this joke now that his new girlfriend is probably Amish because we realize now that's another narcissist thing. We fought constantly about my social media use.
Really?
Constantly. Even because I ran that fitness business, but he always made it into like I was ruining our relationship or I was never present and all this stuff. And I like really internalized that. I mean, we could all be on our phones less.
That's actually so interesting that you said that, because I would say my ex was way more obsessed with how he looked on social media, but he would get on me for being on my phone too much also. But my marketing niche is social media.
My clients, I'm
on here for my clients most of the time. Like,
and that's like was our number one fight, was always that I was on my phone. And so I was like, I started carrying complex about it. Like, I'm running a business, like whatever. And we would fight about that. But I think for him, not being on there, it's like he didn't want to be exposed. Like, and I've always been this honest talker. Like even when I didn't have any things like this, I never used to talk about this stuff while we dated. Like I didn't do any of this till after, but we did all that. And so like this girl, she has no social media except Snapchat. So he found a girl that does not do social media. She's like, which is crazy. She's like 25. She's younger than me. And so she doesn't do social media. And so when I never creeped her at all, he posted that picture, there was no tag. So I like never went down the rabbit hole because she didn't have anything, which was great for my mental health, honestly. But when they broke up, but she said that she's like, I'm still your average girl. So her roommate does have social media. And she was like, obviously we used her Instagram and stuff because she's like, he still had your tagged photos. And so she went down the rabbit hole and it stopped me. She's like, and she was like, I was super intimidated by you. Like, this is like, we broke up when I like literally the month of my show. Like, so like I was like still very fit and like, and not trying to be down on myself now, but it's like, she was like,
she's seeing this bodybuilder and just broke up with, and she's like,
and he's gross. Like, it's true. Like her and I both talk about it all the time. Like, what the fuck? Especially by the time we broke up, he like got himself back together a little bit by the time she met him. Like, and so she's like, I was super intimidated. We used to look at all this, but I guess because of stalking me just in those initial times, her roommate, I started showing up in her TikTok For You page at some point. And so I had only made like a couple videos, like and they were super anonymous. And also me just talking about my experience. Like there would be like those stitches you can do, or it'd be like, what's something that, or like a red flag you ignored, or like something that a narcissist made you believe about yourself, like something like that. And I would just talk about, obviously everybody that knows me knew it was him because whatever, but like for the internet, nothing. I never said, and usually just talking about my experience. Yeah. And I just made a couple of those. And so I guess her roommate, like she said in the 8 months, they broke up probably like 3 or 4 times on and off, like same shit. We did the same shit for 4 years. Like we would break up, but not really, like we'd live together and we'd be like, we're done. And then 2 days later, like, obviously we're not done, like whatever. And so she said that like a few months before they broke up, her roommate started being like, I think that I believe this girl. And she was like, no offense to you. I was like, totally get it. You're the fucking girlfriend. And that she was just like, she's like, that seems dramatic. I think she's probably just like hurting and venting and whatever else and blah, 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 which I would be the same way. Yeah. And she was like, he did say she's like, dramatic and like, blah, blah, blah. And that he told her that he told me every ex before her had cheated on him. Like all this didn't happen.
I was going to say, I'm so curious what the story about me is. That's the one selfish thing of this. I'm like, I know what you told me about his ex-wife. I want to know what he's telling this new girl about me.
I haven't got to talk to this on here because I hadn't talked about the pregnancy stuff on the podcast by the time when I had her on. And so we didn't talk about this, but I found out he told her that I was lying to him about it being his to try to get him to stay. Yeah, that was the story he told her. So he didn't lie to her about when it happened, but lied about the timeline entirely. So she had no idea that all this happened with us within the same month of her meeting him. She had no fucking idea. He was like, I just got out of a long-term relationship. It was very vague. She said she started noticing on her own once her roommate said that a lot of his stories, she would ask him questions about me. And she's like, the stories didn't quite line up. But she was like, I trusted him. She's like, I'll be honest with you, he did not talk shit about you. But he would just be like, oh, he's like, we just, you know, all we ever did was like, whatever. But then he would be like, oh, we never fought. Like he would tell her that kind of stuff. Like not true.
Yeah.
But well, kind of true. He would basically just like spin it around and I would be crying and then be like, you're right. But we both talked about how like he would like use sex manipulatively with us. Like he literally told her that he got good at sex because it's easier to get women to do what you want. Like I think he was like really spiraling and he went straight from her to me. So I feel like she got like the heightened version of me. I feel like I kind of had like a slow burn to his shit, but she got it bad.
Yeah.
Like, and so she was like, you know, but she mentioned basically that's happened, that she was starting to see it. And then she said they started fighting a lot and her roommate was like, she had just called her and like was crying about this fight they had. And her roommate called her back the next day and was like, dude, because one of my videos showed up on her For You page.
It's crazy like, how the algorithm blesses you sometimes.
It was this fucking like video where it was this stitch where it's like that like gorilla song. It's like, you don't know the half of the abuse or whatever. It's like this girl that was just like, someone asked me today if I thought maybe he was punishing his mother through me. And she like does this pan over where she's just, same. And so, and I stitched it because the last thing this man fucking said to me in that fight, the last time I saw him, period, is he's like, you're manipulative just like my mother. And she had told me that she's like, in this email, she's like, she said he said that exact thing to me the day before we saw that video. And she's like, so I called him out and I was like, it's the exact line, like this girl's not fucking crazy, like you're a liar and all this shit. And so what's crazy is this was all happening in the same week that I was literally about to
like actually super proud of that girl for noticing it that fast.
Yeah, she's a badass. And she honestly, the respect I have for her for like emailing me the stuff she did, because like what happened is I got this, so it's crazy.
And being brave enough to also confront him about
That's
it.
What I mean.
That's the scariest part.
And she called it out and she like messaged me. Well, I got a message from him out of the blue, like right before this blowout. I didn't know all this was happening. We hadn't talked in the whole time. I get a Facebook message from him. He wasn't blocked, but we just never spoke. And I didn't pursue him. I was done. I was drained. And I realized what happened, whatever. He had messaged me. He was like, oh, I've had like 5 people tell me you're moving to Austin. I just want to tell you I'm so happy for you. I just want the best for you. And I was kind of like, what the fuck? But I did respond and I was just like, thank you. I'm excited. Like we said that and it was over. 5 days later, I get a message from him and he says, I really need you to stop making TikTok videos about me. It's fucking up my life. He's like, at first when I heard about it, I thought didn't care because I thought you were just venting and I let you do that. And he was like, but it's starting to mess with my life and that's fucked up. And I had no idea what this was about. So I was like, what the fuck?
Sorry, I'm good at social media.
He's like a few videos, but a whole series, question mark. First of all, there was no series. I went back, I was so psycho and like freaked out. I got hives, like exactly what I'm about. When I got that message from him, I was like, I felt sick. And so I like went through, I like counted the videos literally and like linked them all in a note for myself. And there was like 4 total over 9 months. And so I was like, what the fuck? But I had no idea what that was about. And 4 days later, I get this which is actually, we talked about this, so cosmic. It was right before I was going to move, and me and my best friend, I still kept all the shit. I got all of our pictures, all this shit in like a box, all this shit. And I went to her house, we had a big bonfire. So my therapist told me, she's like, you have to do a cord cutting.
I was going to say, I've done that.
The night we're setting this shit on fire is when I get this email from this girl.
That's so crazy.
It was fucking nuts. Yeah, like I opened it up and it just says apologies in advance is the subject. And it's a name I don't know. Cause like I said, she was never tagged. I literally didn't know this girl's name. And I was like, this is a weird heading. Like normally I wouldn't even pull up an email while I'm at like with her. We were like wine drunk. Like, and I was like weird. And so I clicked it and it was just this whole thing. And she was just like, I understand if you hate me, like, but she's like, I just needed to say this to you because from like what I'm reeling through over the last 8 months, I can't imagine. She's like, I just want you to know, like, your experiences were so valid. Like, I feel like you probably need to hear that if you've been wondering like how crazy you must have felt. Like, she was like, you were right. And she kind of just word vomited and just dumped their whole experience. And my friends were like, you could have written that email. Like, it was wild. And now we're friends. Now we're besties.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we were pen pals for a while. And that she like literally just came to visit me. No, so she's a travel nurse. So he got her she like abandoned all her plans that where she was gonna go and stayed there with him.
Comedy was dying in my life when I literally would not be where I'm at with comedy today if I hadn't ended that relationship. If you have a dream and he's ruining that, red flag.
But you know what lights up your comedy? Getting done with a narcissist.
I was gonna say, I still quite honestly haven't written. I have one really solid joke about it, but like I don't know, like I'll be honest, I haven't gone to therapy. didn't know what to talk about at first with it. And like, I'm one of those people too that just like does a lot of my own research and like literally I take an hour every morning to like sit and journal and meditate and pray and like really just try to process my emotions and get ready for the day and all those things. So it's like, I'm probably going to do therapy at some point to like dissect this more, but like, I feel like I've gotten really lucky to talk to other people who have gone through this. And I did, again, a lot of my own research on narcissistic personality disorder and like, I've just had people in my life, you know, tell me the things that I think a therapist would, quite honestly. Like, it's not your fault. You can't get mad at yourself, like all those things. So I definitely feel like I'm definitely in a much better place now than I was a year ago. And I definitely want to write jokes about the experience. I just want to come at it from a more clever place than like, here's an hour of my shitty ex. And I said that to you last night too. It's like, it needs to be about my experience, and I don't want him to feel like he gets any credit.
Because they enjoy that. That's why I did the 2 episodes. I mean,
and it sucks because it's like they're always gonna feel like I actually don't care what he thinks. I just don't want other people to be like, oh well, she's complaining about this guy, but she has him to thank for her special. Right. He can think that all he wants, but like I want it to be clever and helpful to other people enough that it's not about him, it's about my experience.
And that's the whole reason I did those 2 episodes about him. And then otherwise I have sprinkles of things in it just when I have conversations like this with people. But I did those 2 episodes to just get my story out there because I was like, my whole goal with doing any of those TikToks or anything was like, I just want to help someone else see it. And the fact that I did it and then helped literally her see it was so wild. So that I was like, that means though it can help anonymous people. So
exactly. And it's like, and me just even saying that just made me have the thought. I'm like, when has a man ever had to think like, oh, they're going to give the woman credit for the jokes about her, whereas like in comedy I literally I'm concerned that he's gonna get the credit for my jokes because they involve him. Like that's the difference.
It's actually interesting though because I do think I actually don't have anything. I have that bit we were talking about right before here that I haven't really been running, but other than that I have actually no jokes about him. I have one that I've just started doing, just the story, because he fucking did like a pseudo cheating shit with me in the first fucking few months I knew him too.
I was gonna say mine tried to keep our relationship open. We didn't even talk about that. I was like, whoa.
But I have that I've started running, but it's the same thing. It's like I want it to be this like my own thing. And like even when I tell the jokes about the drug stuff with that other guy, like it's very just like, it's not really about me being like, oh, here's how the relationship. It's like punchy stuff that was just like funny about being with somebody like that. So like, you know, it's like I'm the same way. It's like I love to talk about like dating and sex stuff on there, but I like to turn it into like, here's my ownership and the shit that I've like learned and like why I'm in these situations. Like, because I also don't want to be that comedian that's just like, fuck man and blah, blah, blah. Like,
well, because that's also not how I feel. I feel like fuck that man.
Some days,
you know what I mean?
Some days.
But it's like I love men. I think men are great, and I think like I think men are shat on all of the time already. And we were talking about this earlier too. But it's like I think men are hurting right now, so I don't want to be contributing to that. Like I think my complaints about men not stepping up to the plate in the way we want them to is largely due to the fact that we're shit talking them all the time. So it's like, I don't think we should just be shit talking, but I do think we should still be pointing out the things that can be improved in a funny way.
For sure. My very first like intro episode of this, I actually said that on here. I was like, I don't want this to be like a male bashing podcast. I'm going to bring girls on to talk about their experiences, but it's not about all that. I was like, because I literally was like, I love men. I think they're stupid sometimes, but I do love them. Like,
well, I mean, they feel the same about us.
And they're right. We're all right.
Like, because it's like it's literally we think of each other as stupid for the opposite reasons. We're like, they don't understand emotions and they say we're too emotional. And you know, but like, you know, I agree. Like, I think we need to be supporting each other and all that stuff way more than we currently are. But man, I had another point I was going to make. I don't remember it now. But yeah, like it'll come to me in a second. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
No, you're good. I'll let you think on this while you do that, because before we close, I have one question to ask all my guests. Sometimes I give them a fair warning in advance and I forgot. So
that's fine.
If you have to think about it, that's fine. But so this is Responsibly Unhinged. We've covered a little bit of it all, but I do feel like we've leaned into a lot of really awesome responsibly side of things, like as far as just like really good conversation to help people. And I love that, especially with I think it's so fun to do that with people who just have a comedic flair, because it can like feel light talking about heavy stuff. But I always end on an unhinged note. So I like to ask every guest what the most unhinged thing they've done in the realm of like sex and dating, like just a story that you have. So it can be unhinged in terms of like a situation you've been in. It can be unhinged in terms of things you've done to get a man's attention, or like stuff that you've done just when you've had like dumb bitch energy. It can be like I said, I've had people tell like bizarre sex stories on here, or just like I mean, I always embarrass myself. I spent like $500 on hockey tickets one time to go to a game that I knew the guy was going to. just to try to run into him. It was a very desperate
That's
moment.
funny, actually. Yeah.
I wish it was longer ago than it was.
I wish it was longer ago than it was.
It was like a year and a half ago. So yeah.
Oh man.
It didn't work, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, of course.
I saw him after it, which could have been just free. So.
Oh man. Whatever. I haven't ever told this story on a podcast before. Perfect. This one's kind of fun though.
This is Taylor's favorite part of the segment every week.
Yeah, no, I had one of those like dumb American bitch goes to Europe and ends up in a hotel with a guy. That's not like super crazy.
You didn't get traffic, so that's good.
But exactly. But for me, it was crazy because I'm not like that. I don't do the one night stand thing, like shit like that. And so it was like, literally, I didn't even want to be out that night either. I was over in Ireland with one of my best friends from high school. She's a year younger than me. So when she graduated college, she was like, "You've been to Europe before. I want to go to Ireland in London for for my graduation. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we went out, and I had a friend that was living in Dublin at the time, studying over there. So she was like, "Oh, I'll take you guys where all the people our age are." We go out, and I mean, I drank more then. Like I was not regular, but I was down to drink, and especially in Europe. And I love whiskey, so I was on some Jameson, and I was with my friends. And then there was this bachelor party that decided to like start talking to us. And one of them was clearly like closer to our age, and the other ones were kind of older. And the one closer to our age just is immediately like hitting on me.
Yeah.
And I was so drunk, like I just ended up leaving with him. Like my friend Alli, also named Alli, wanted to go home. She goes home. Friend that was studying there goes off somewhere else. I go off with this guy.
Yeah.
We're so drunk. He talks me into drinking fucking vodka Red Bull, which I hate both of those things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so I was just plastered, and it was one of those ones where we just like ended up at a bar somewhere, and it was super fun, and like, you know, making out with him, whatever. Yeah. And then he's like, "Hey, like, let's go get a room." And I thought he meant like, "Oh, let's like go to my place."
Right. He
like calls a cab and takes us to like the bougiest hotel downtown, and just like puts down his car and was like, get me a room." And I was like, okay. And yeah, so I spent the night in that hotel room, and then we woke up the next day, and I was like, "Oh, you know, nice to meet you, I guess. What are you doing today?" And he was just like, "Oh, I gotta go coach a soccer game." And I thought he'd been trolling me about that. He was coaching like middle school girls soccer. And I was like, "This is hilarious that you're leaving this bougie hotel to go coach like 12-year-old girls soccer." Amazing. And then I was like, "Oh, like you want to connect on whatever?" And he's like, "No, I have a girlfriend."
Oh.
And I was like, and he had like kind of mentioned that the night before, but like he was also super drunk, and it was when we were still with my friends.
Yeah.
And so he said something about like, "Oh, I'm into American girls, like my girlfriend or whatever," but not to me, like to someone else. And so then my friend was like, "Wait, you have a girlfriend?" He's like, "Oh, no. Like my ex-girlfriend was American." And then like it turns out he was in a long distance relationship with a girl who was American in America.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so he was like, "Yeah, we're not exchanging information."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my God."
Damn.
Yeah, so that's a little fun.
That's fun. Yeah, that's a good one. That's fun.
That wasn't like
it's escalated by being in another country. I don't know why that elevates
it. Well, it is, yeah. For whatever reason it is, for sure. I would say my most unhinged, like trying to get a guy's attention thing was, I totally like last minute bought tickets to a concert to try and run into a guy.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
I've done that too.
Like, oh my God, we love this same thing.
Oh my God,
I have never watched hockey. I actually do enjoy hockey games, but like I do not follow.
Right.
I got like I literally brought a friend with me, but I was like, "I'm paying for your ticket." Honestly, we ended up with dope seats. It was just all that was left, so that's why I paid so much. But
right.
We had a blast, and I got wasted. It was really fun. So I was like, I don't regret it, but it was like I was like, that was my favorite podcast. Always called they call it the Desperado scale.
Yeah.
And I was Desperado 15 for sure. Like 15 out of 10. Like I was like, oh God.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, this was super fun.
Yeah. It's great talking to you.
I loved it. Yeah. So I definitely I'm sure I'll be seeing you much more. I would love to. But let the audience know where they can see you, where they can find you. I know you mentioned your shows and everything, but where they can connect you on social media. I'll link it all for them as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Pretty much all the social media is Alli Wo, ALLIWO.
You don't have to be able to spell that last name.
Yeah, exactly. That's my website too, alliwo.com. It redirects to AllisonWojtowecz.com. So you don't need to know. Wojtowecz starts with a W. So Alli Wo. If you just look up Alli Wo, you'll find me. And then every Tuesday, 8 p.m. at Creek in the Cave, Liddy Titty Tuesday. Come be petty.
Oh yeah, perfect. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.